The gym is alive with nervous energy as Jaylen stands by his project, his water purifier catching the glare of the overhead lights. Judges and students weave through the maze of tables, their voices rising and falling in a wave of anticipation. Jaylen's posture is calm, his gaze steady, even as whispers ripple around him. He feels the weight of every sideways glance, every dismissive look, but he remains anchored, refusing to let doubt creep in. A judge pauses at the table next to his, offering a warm smile to a student before moving on. Jaylen watches, his jaw set, as the same judge barely glances his way. Another student's laughter rings out, but it fades quickly, replaced by a hush as Dr. Hensley approaches. The man's eyes sweep over Jaylen's display, lingering on the technical diagrams for a moment before moving to the next project. Jaylen's hands tighten at his sides, but his voice is even when he finally speaks. "Would you like to see how it works?" he asks, his tone polite but unwavering. Dr. Hensley offers a nod, but his attention is already drifting. He scribbles something on his score sheet, not bothering to hide his lack of interest. A teacher nearby shifts her weight, her expression unreadable, while a parent glances over, curiosity flickering in her eyes. Jaylen's mother stands at a distance, her presence a quiet source of strength. She catches his eye and gives a small, encouraging nod. Jaylen draws a breath, letting the moment settle before he continues, explaining his process in clear, confident terms. As the crowd moves on, Jaylen remains at his table, the hum of the gym fading into the background. He knows the challenge is not just the science, but being seen and heard in a place that often overlooks people like him. Yet he stands tall, his resolve unshaken. The quiet dignity in his stance is a silent challenge to every doubt in the room. The scene closes with Jaylen's steady gaze, a promise that he will not be diminished by anyone's lack of vision. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. Dr. Hensley approaches Jaylen's table, his presence marked by a practiced air of authority. He glances at the project, eyes scanning the surface but never truly settling. Without a word, he flips through Jaylen's data sheets, his movements brisk and impersonal. The pen in his hand hovers, then moves in quick, dismissive strokes across the evaluation form. Jaylen watches, searching for any sign of genuine engagement, but finds only a wall of indifference. The judge's face remains unreadable, his attention already drifting to the next display. Jaylen clears his throat, hoping to draw Hensley's focus. "Would you like to see the filtration process in action?" His voice is calm, but there's a hint of hope beneath the surface. Hensley's response is clipped, almost mechanical. "No need. I've seen enough." He offers a tight, perfunctory nod before turning away, leaving Jaylen standing in a wake of unspoken dismissal. The rejection is not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, efficient, and final. Jaylen's hands rest on the edge of the table, knuckles whitening as he absorbs the moment. Around them, the fair continues. Other judges linger at projects, asking questions, offering encouragement. Jaylen's table, by contrast, becomes a small island of stillness. A teacher nearby glances over, her lips pressing together in silent frustration. Jaylen's mother, watching from a distance, catches the exchange and feels the sting of it, her hand tightening around her purse strap. The power dynamic is clear. One man's casual gesture erases months of work and ambition. Jaylen straightens his shoulders, refusing to let the moment define him. He meets his mother's gaze, drawing quiet strength from her steady presence. The judge's pen may have moved on, but Jaylen's resolve remains. In the heavy pause that follows, a shift begins, small, almost imperceptible, but real. The scene ends with Jaylen's quiet determination holding firm against the weight of dismissal, a silent promise that his story is far from over. Jaylen's mother stands a few steps behind, her eyes never leaving her son. She feels the weight of every glance that slides past him, the quiet dismissals that no one voices aloud. Her hand finds his shoulder, a gentle touch that speaks volumes. steadfast, unyielding, a shield against the invisible forces pressing down. She remembers her own battles, the whispered warnings, and the doors closed before she could even knock. Her silence is not submission, but a reservoir of strength, a legacy passed down through generations. In this moment, her presence is a quiet rebellion, a testament to the power of unwavering support. Nearby, a teacher watches with a furrowed brow, her fingers nervously twisting a pen. She knows the system's cracks run deep, but fear keeps her voice low. A janitor pauses in the hallway, his gaze lingering on Jaylen's project, a silent nod acknowledging the boy's fight. Jaylen feels the touch, the unspoken promise that he is not alone. He straightens, drawing courage from the quiet strength beside him. The room hums with tension, but in that small connection, a spark ignites, a beginning of change that no dismissal can extinguish. The principal walks by, his eyes briefly meeting Jaylen's mother. There is a flicker of recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the battle being fought in this room. The janitor shifts his weight, the creak of his cart, a subtle reminder of the many unseen workers who keep the school running, often overlooked, but essential. Jaylen's mother breathes deeply, steadying herself against the tide of doubt that threatens to overwhelm. Her gaze softens as she watches her son explain his project to a curious student, his voice steady despite the undercurrent of skepticism. A fellow parent leans in, whispering to another, their words lost but their eyes filled with a mix of admiration and disbelief. The quiet murmurs ripple through the room, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The scene closes on Jaylen's mother's steady hand, resting firm and sure, a beacon in the storm of doubt. Her strength is the quiet force that will carry them both forward, beyond the shadows of prejudice and into the light of possibility. The polished gym floor gleams beneath the harsh lights, mirroring the steady current of students and parents weaving through the maze of projects. Most pass Jaylen's table with only the briefest glance, their footsteps forming a quiet rhythm of avoidance. The space around his display feels dense, charged with the weight of potential left unacknowledged. Each step that carries someone away from his work adds another layer to the invisible wall that separates him from recognition. Jaylen stands his ground, hands resting lightly on the edge of the table. He observes a cluster of students laughing nearby, their voices a blend of excitement and distraction. A parent pauses, eyes flicking over his invention before turning away, her face unreadable. The message is unspoken, but clear. Not every story is given a place here. Across the room, a teacher shifts uneasily, her gaze darting between Jaylen and the crowd, lips pressed together in silent regret. In the hallway, a janitor lingers for a moment, watching the scene before moving on, the soft creak of his cart, a subtle reminder of the many unseen hands that keep the school running. Jaylen's mother stands close, arms crossed, jaw set with quiet resolve. She meets Jaylen's eyes, offering a brief nod of encouragement. The connection is fleeting, but powerful. A silent understanding that, despite the heavy air of exclusion, this moment is a step toward something greater. The gym's atmosphere seems to thicken, the collective pressure of eyes that look but do not see pressing down. Yet within that heaviness, a spark of resilience glows. Jaylen's steady breath, the calm in his posture, and the unwavering support beside him form a quiet defiance against the undertow of being passed over. As the crowd shifts and moves on, the polished floor remains, bearing silent witness to the moments that slip by unnoticed, but carry the seeds of change. Jaylen's journey is not marked by grand gestures, but by the subtle echoes that ripple through the halls. A student nearby drops a book, the sharp sound cutting through the tension. Jaylen's gaze flickers toward the noise, his jaw tightening for an instant before he regains his composure. It's a small moment, but it holds the weight of the silent battle he fights with every breath. Jaylen watches as Dr. Hensley turns, away, his words barely audible but sharp enough to cut through the quiet tension. Not ready for this level. The judge's retreat is swift, a silent dismissal that carries the weight of years of unseen bias. Jaylen's lips curl into a small, knowing smile, not of triumph, but of quiet defiance. It is the calm before the storm, a subtle signal that the old order is beginning to fracture. Around him, the gym buzzes with the usual noise, but beneath the surface, a shift is taking place. A teacher's eyes narrow. A parent's gaze lingers longer than before. The air feels charged, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. Jaylen's mother catches his eye, her expression a mix of pride and concern. She nods slightly, a silent vow passing between them. Jaylen's smile deepens, steady and sure, a promise that this moment will not be the end. Nearby, a janitor pauses in the hallway, his gaze fixed on Jaylen's project. He adjusts his cap, a small gesture of respect for the boy's quiet strength. A student nearby drops a notebook, the sharp sound slicing through the murmurs, drawing a few glances toward Jaylen's table. The water purifier sits at the center, its sleek design a testament to months of work and resilience. The polished floor reflects the flicker of hope in Jaylen's eyes. The scene closes on the quiet strength of a young man who refuses to be diminished, his smile a beacon in the gathering storm. In the background, whispers begin to swell, soft but growing louder. Conversations that once skirted around Jaylen's project now edge closer, curiosity replacing doubt. The subtle shift in energy is palpable, a quiet revolution in motion. Jaylen's breath steadies, his heart beating with a calm resolve. He knows the path ahead will be difficult, but his smile carries the weight of every challenge faced and every barrier broken. It is a silent promise to himself and to those who will follow. Jaylen's mind drifts back to earlier science fairs, where doubt shadowed every step. Teachers exchange skeptical glances, whispers of, "He probably copied it," trailing behind him like a shadow. Each memory presses on his chest, a weight of unspoken accusations and quiet dismissal. The gym's buzzing lights dim in his mind, replaced by the sharp focus of systemic bias that has followed him through every competition. Faces blur, but the sting of exclusion remains vivid. Jaylen recalls the times he was overlooked, passed over for praise, and dismissed before he could even speak. Nearby, a teacher's voice breaks through the haze, a soft murmur. "This always happens. They don't see us." The words hang heavy, a quiet acknowledgement of a pattern repeated too often. Jaylen's resolve hardens, the ghosts of doubt fueling a fire within. In the background, the janitor's slow footsteps echo, a reminder of the many unseen battles fought in silence. Jaylen's mother watches from the sidelines, her eyes reflecting both pride and pain. The crowd moves around him, unaware of the quiet storm gathering beneath his calm exterior. A fellow student drops a book nearby, the sharp sound slicing through the murmurs. Jaylen's eyes flicker toward the noise, his jaw tightening briefly, before he regains composure. A teacher nearby shifts uneasily, her fingers nervously twisting a pen, her gaze darting between Jaylen and the crowd. Jaylen's mother steps forward, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder, a silent gesture of support. She whispers, "You're stronger than they know." Jaylen nods, the weight of her words settling deep within. The gym's atmosphere thickens, the collective gaze of the crowd heavy but shifting. The quiet tension is palpable, a prelude to the change that is coming. A janitor, Mr. Banks, moves quietly through the dimly lit school corridors after hours. His hands tremble slightly as he picks up a crumpled stack of discarded papers from a trash bin. The faded words on the topmost email catch his eye. "Stick to basics with these kids." The phrase, typed coldly and without empathy, reveals a long history of quiet sabotage. He folds the papers carefully, his face shadowed with a mix of sorrow and resolve. These documents, never meant to be seen, expose the undercurrent of bias that has shaped countless futures. The janitor's slow footsteps echo in the empty hall, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that fills the school by day. In the staff room, a teacher, Ms. Malhotra, sifts through a pile of old files. Her fingers pause over a folder marked "Complaints." She hesitates, then slips one page into her bag, a silent act of defiance against a system that demands silence. Her eyes flicker with a mix of fear and determination, knowing the weight of what she carries. Meanwhile, the janitor's discovery sparks a quiet ripple. A student, Liam, shares a photo of the email on social media, the image spreading like wildfire. The school's polished floors reflect the growing unrest, the first cracks in a system long thought unbreakable. The weight of the emails hangs heavy in the air, a silent accusation against years of overlooked talent and buried complaints. Ms. Malhotra's quiet rebellion is a beacon for those who have suffered in silence, a small but powerful step toward justice. Outside, the school's walls seem to hold their breath, the usual hum of activity replaced by a tense stillness. The janitor's discovery is more than a moment. It is the beginning of a reckoning. Liam's phone buzzes constantly, each notification a reminder that the truth cannot be contained. The digital world awakens, and with it, the hope that change is possible. The janitor moves slowly down the quiet hallway, his footsteps muffled by the worn soles of his shoes. His eyes linger on the science fair gym, where memories of his son's ignored project flicker like shadows. He pauses, the weight of unspoken grief pressing down, a silent testament to years of overlooked dreams. Mrs. Banks wipes her hands on her apron, her gaze distant yet sharp. She remembers the countless times her son's efforts were dismissed, the quiet erasure of his potential. Her silence is heavy, filled with the pain of battles fought in the background, where voices were muffled and hopes dimmed. Nearby, Jaylen's project stands as a beacon of resilience, its sleek design a stark contrast to the faded posters of past years. The janitor's eyes soften as he watches Jaylen explain his invention to a curious student, the boy's calm determination, a balm to old wounds. A teacher passes by, her expression a mix of regret and resolve. She glances at the janitor, offering a small, understanding nod, a quiet acknowledgement of the shared history of struggle. The janitor's grip tightens on his mop handle, a subtle gesture of solidarity. Jaylen's mother stands close, her hand resting lightly on her son's shoulder. She catches the janitor's eye, and in that brief exchange, a silent promise is made. The past will not be forgotten, and the fight for justice continues. The gym's atmosphere hums with a new energy, the echoes of unspoken grief transforming into a chorus of hope. The janitor's silence speaks volumes, a powerful reminder that every overlooked story carries the seeds of change. The teacher sits alone in her dimly lit office, the weight of forgotten voices pressing down on her. She opens a dusty filing cabinet, the creak of the drawer echoing in the stillness. Inside, stacks of old complaints and reports spill out, each page a testament to years of buried injustice. Her fingers tremble as she sifts through the documents, eyes scanning names and dates, the patterns of bias unmistakable. She pauses on a folder marked with a faded label, "Unaddressed Concerns." The words feel heavy, a silent indictment of a system that demanded silence and compliance. Memories flood her mind. Students overlooked, dreams deferred, voices muffled by fear and indifference. She recalls the quiet conversations in staff rooms, the hushed warnings to stay in line. Her heart aches for the young minds stifled by prejudice, their potential dimmed before it could shine. A soft knock at the door breaks her reverie. A colleague peers in, offering a hesitant smile and a nod of understanding. The teacher slips a crucial document into her bag, a quiet act of rebellion and hope. She knows the road ahead is fraught with risk, but the truth must be told. Outside, the school hums with the usual activity, unaware of the storm gathering beneath its surface. The teacher's regret is a quiet force, a catalyst for change that will ripple through the halls and beyond. The files may have been buried, but their stories are ready to rise. The reporter sits at his cluttered desk, the dim light casting long shadows over stacks of notebooks and half-drunk coffee cups. His pen hovers over a fresh page, hesitating, as he recalls the countless stories left untold. Each name, each project dismissed, weighs heavily on his mind, a silent testament to the talent buried beneath layers of neglect. He flips through his notes, the scribbled accounts of students whose dreams were labeled unrealistic or unworthy. The words blur, but the pain behind them is sharp and clear. Tomas Delgado knows these stories are more than anecdotes. They are the fractures in a system that promised opportunity but delivered exclusion. Outside, the school hums with the usual noise, unaware of the quiet storm brewing in the reporter's mind. He pauses, pen poised, and writes, "How many geniuses has this school buried?" The question lingers, unanswered but powerful, a call to action wrapped in ink. In the background, a janitor passes by, nodding subtly as he catches the reporter's gaze, a shared understanding of the battles fought in silence. The reporter's fingers tighten around the pen, determination settling in. This article will not be just another forgotten piece. It will be a beacon for those who have been overlooked. The scene closes with the reporter staring out the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. His voiceover begins, soft but resolute. Every story matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. And this time, the silence ends here. Liam stands near the judge's table, his phone hidden just beneath the edge. He waits for the right moment, heart pounding, as Dr. Hensley sets down the evaluation sheets. The judge's handwriting is unmistakable, sharp, hurried, and dismissive. Liam snaps a quick photo of Jaylen's scorecard, catching the word unoriginal scrawled in bold red ink. The moment is brief, but its impact will ripple far beyond the gym. He slips away, blending into the crowd, his mind racing with the weight of what he's captured. Jaylen stands at his table, unaware of the storm about to break. Across the room, a teacher catches Liam's eye, her expression tense but hopeful. She nods once, a silent encouragement to do what's right. Liam uploads the image to social media, hands shaking as he types a caption, "This is how talent gets erased." Within minutes, the post begins to spread. Notifications flood his phone. Likes, shares, comments from classmates and strangers alike. The red ink, meant to diminish, now exposes the truth for all to see. Parents gather in small groups, murmuring as the image circulates. A student approaches Jaylen, showing him the post. Jaylen's eyes widen, a mix of anger and validation flickering across his face. The gym's atmosphere shifts, the usual background noise replaced by a charged, expectant energy. Dr. Hensley senses the change, his gaze darting around the room as whispers grow louder. He straightens his tie, trying to regain control. But the damage is done. The scorecard, once a private tool of judgment, has become public evidence of a system's failure. Liam watches from a distance, relief and anxiety mingling in his chest. He knows this is only the beginning, but for the first time, the truth is out in the open, and it cannot be erased. Security footage flickers on screens around the school, the grainy image freezing on the moment Dr. Hensley's eyes drift upward as Jaylen begins his presentation. He leans back, arms crossed, a subtle curl at the corner of his mouth, betraying impatience. The gesture is small, but the meaning is unmistakable. The video loops, each replay deepening the sting of being brushed aside. Jaylen's voice is clear, explaining his process with quiet confidence, unaware of the judge's visible disregard. In the crowded hallway, a teacher stops mid-step, her eyes narrowing as she watches the footage. Her fingers drum an anxious rhythm on her notebook, the tension in her posture mirrored by the students gathering around. A group of parents exchange glances, their expressions shifting from confusion to outrage as the truth becomes impossible to deny. A student whispers to a friend, "Did you see that?" The words hang in the air, heavy with disbelief and anger. The janitor, passing by with his cart, pauses and watches, his quiet nod a silent acknowledgement of the truth finally exposed. The footage spreads quickly, shared on phones and laptops. The judge's quiet contempt now public for all to see. Dr. Hensley's composure begins to fracture. He glances around the room, searching for support, but finds only a wall of silent condemnation. The camera lingers on his face, the tightness around his eyes and the furrow in his brow revealing a man unraveling beneath the scrutiny. Jaylen stands at his table, watching the scene unfold. His jaw clenches, but his eyes remain steady. The years of being brushed aside press down on him, but his resolve only grows. The atmosphere in the gym shifts. What was once a backdrop of indifference now buzzes with the promise of change. The scene ends with a loaded pause. The quiet, charged with the power of truth, finally brought to light. Phones light up across the gym as the video of Dr. Hensley's dismissive gesture spreads. A student at the back starts a hashtag, "Let Jaylen compete," and within minutes the phrase flashes across screens, carried by classmates, parents, and strangers who see themselves in Jaylen's fight. The digital tide rises fast, each post a small act of rebellion against the old rules. Jaylen's friend Liam watches the notifications pour in, his hands trembling as he reads messages from people he's never met. "This isn't right," one student writes. "He deserves a real chance." The gym's energy shifts. Conversations grow urgent. Voices rise in support. A teacher refreshes her feed, her eyes widening as the hashtag climbs the trending list. She glances at Jaylen, her usual reserve replaced by a glimmer of hope. Jaylen stands at his table, the hum of the crowd, now a wave of encouragement. A parent approaches, phone in hand, and says quietly, "We're behind you." Jaylen nods, gratitude and disbelief mingling in his eyes. The support is overwhelming, a stark contrast to the isolation he felt just hours before. Dr. Hensley, standing near the judge's table, senses the shift. He checks his own phone, his jaw tightening. As he scrolls through the posts, each notification is a reminder that the power he once held is slipping away, replaced by the collective voice of a community no longer willing to accept quiet injustice. The gym feels different now, charged, alive, and ready for change. The hashtag is more than a trend. It's a rallying cry, a demand for fairness that echoes far beyond the school walls. Jaylen's story is no longer just his own. It belongs to everyone who has ever been told to wait their turn. As the scene closes, Jaylen looks around, seeing not just supporters, but allies. The movement has begun, and there's no turning back. Emails begin to pour in, each one a piece of a puzzle long hidden. "He did the same to my daughter," one message reads, the pain behind it unmistakable. Another parent writes, "My son's project was dismissed without a glance." The inbox fills with stories, each testimony a thread unraveling the carefully woven fabric of Dr. Hensley's reputation. The weight of these voices is undeniable, a chorus that can no longer be contained. At the school board office, staff gather around a computer scrolling through the flood of messages. A secretary covers her mouth, eyes wide with shock. A board member, usually composed, rubs his temples and mutters, "How did we miss this?" The room is thick with unease, the reality of systemic failure settling over them. The stories are not just about Jaylen, they are about years of overlooked talent, dreams quietly set aside, and a pattern that can no longer be ignored. Jaylen sits with his mother, reading the messages as they come in. She squeezes his hand, her voice soft but steady. "You're not alone. Look how many there are." Jaylen nods, the truth of it settling in his chest. The isolation he once felt has been replaced by a sense of belonging, a realization that his fight is shared by many. Outside, students gather in small groups, phones in hand, whispering about the revelations. A teacher steps into the hallway, her expression troubled but determined. She joins the students, adding her own story to the growing list. The atmosphere is electric, the sense of change palpable. The school board's long table, once a symbol of authority, now groans under the weight of truth. The voices that were once scattered and unheard have become a force, demanding accountability and justice. The floodgates are open, and there is no going back. The school board meeting room is quiet, the polished table reflecting the weight of unspoken truths. Board members sit stiffly, their faces masks of professionalism that barely conceal the tension beneath. Papers shuffle softly, a fragile attempt to maintain routine amid the growing storm. A board member clears his throat, breaking the stillness. With a hollow promise, "We will review the judging guidelines thoroughly." The words hang in the air, heavy with the knowledge that past reviews have led nowhere. Ms. Malhotra watches from the back, her fingers nervously tapping a pen, eyes flickering with both hope and skepticism. The superintendent nods solemnly, adding, "Accountability is our priority moving forward." Yet the room feels colder, the distance between words and action palpable. A secretary glances at her phone, the flood of emails still unread, each one a testament to years of overlooked injustice. Outside the window, the school's brick walls seem to absorb the weight of the moment, the ivy creeping slowly as if reluctant, to witness the slow unraveling of old power. The board's hollow table, once a symbol of authority, now echoes with promises that may never be fulfilled. Jaylen sits quietly in the hallway, his breath steady but his heart pounding. He knows the fight is far from over. The room's quiet is a reminder that change requires more than words. It demands courage, persistence, and the unyielding will of those who refuse to be ignored. The scene closes on the empty chairs, the soft click of a door signaling the end of the meeting. The promise lingers, fragile but real, a whisper in the growing roar of justice. Jaylen's phone buzzes softly, the screen lighting up with a new email notification. He pauses, fingers hovering over the device before opening the message. The words. "Congratulations! You've been selected for the International Science Expo glow on the screen, a beacon of hope piercing through months of doubt and dismissal." His eyes widen, a mix of disbelief and cautious optimism washing over his face. The gym around him fades into the background as he reads the invitation again, the weight of the moment settling deep in his chest. This is more than an opportunity. It is a validation of his talent and perseverance. Nearby, his mother watches quietly, her smile soft but proud. She reaches out, squeezing his hand gently, a silent promise that she will stand by him through whatever comes next. Jaylen nods, drawing strength from her unwavering support. The school's walls seem to hold their breath, the usual hum of activity replaced by a charged stillness. Students glance over, whispers spreading like wildfire. The invitation is a crack. In the facade, a glimpse beyond the walls that have long confined him. In the background, a teacher adjusts her glasses, her eyes reflecting a new respect. A janitor pauses in the hallway, his gaze lingering on Jaylen's project with quiet approval. The community's undercurrent shifts, subtle but undeniable. Jaylen closes his laptop slowly, the invitation burning in his mind. Outside, the school's flag snaps sharply in the wind, a symbol of change fluttering against the sky. Somewhere, Dr. Hensley adjusts his tie, unaware that the ground beneath him is already shifting. The scene ends on Jaylen's steady gaze, a young man poised on the edge of a new chapter, ready to step beyond the shadows and into the light. Jaylen closes his laptop slowly, the invitation burning in his mind. Outside, the school's flag snaps sharply in the wind, a symbol of change, fluttering against the sky. Somewhere, Dr. Hensley adjusts his tie, unaware that the ground beneath him is already shifting. The gym's usual hum fades into a quiet tension, the air thick with anticipation. Jaylen's breath is steady, but his heart races beneath the calm exterior. He sits back, eyes fixed on the window where the first hints of dusk paint the sky in muted colors. The world outside seems to hold its breath, waiting for what comes next. In the hallway, footsteps echo softly. A janitor pauses, his gaze lingering on the empty gym, a silent witness to the battles fought within these walls. Teachers exchange glances, their expressions a mix of hope and apprehension. The school feels different, on the cusp of transformation, fragile yet undeniable. Jaylen's mother stands nearby, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. She offers a small smile, a quiet reassurance that they are not alone. Jaylen nods, drawing strength from her presence. The invitation is more than a letter. It is a flicker of light in the gathering storm. The camera lingers on Jaylen's face, calm but resolute, as the scene fades to black. The calm before the storm is a moment of stillness, a breath held before the tide turns. The story is poised on the edge of change, ready to break free. Jaylen steps onto the floor of the International Science Expo, glass walls soaring overhead, and flags from dozens of countries casting shifting colors across the crowd. His water purifier sits at the center of his display, drawing the eyes of judges and students alike. The air is thick with anticipation, but also with the memory of every moment he was doubted back home. Here, the scrutiny feels different, sharper, but also more curious, less burdened by the weight of old prejudice. Judges from around the world approach their questions direct and thoughtful. One leans in, eyebrows raised, genuinely interested in Jaylen's process. Jaylen answers with quiet confidence, his voice steady as he explains the science behind his invention. The crowd gathers, drawn by the clarity of his explanations and the simplicity of his design. For the first time, Jaylen senses the possibility of being seen for his work, not just his presence. Back home, Dr. Hensley sits in his office, eyes glued to the live stream. The screen's glare highlights the sweat on his brow as Jaylen's name appears on the leaderboard, climbing steadily. Hensley's jaw tightens, his hands clenching the arms of his chair. He watches as international judges nod in approval, their curiosity a stark contrast to the dismissive glances Jaylen endured at the school gym. Every point Jaylen earns feels like a direct challenge to the old order Hensley upheld for so long. The Expo floor buzzes with excitement as Jaylen's project advances in the rankings. Students from other countries stop by, asking questions, exchanging ideas. Jaylen's mother stands at the edge of the crowd, tears in her eyes as she watches her son finally receive the recognition he deserves. The camera lingers on Jaylen's face, illuminated by the shifting light, a young man no longer defined by shadows, but by the brilliance of his own achievement. The international judge steps closer, his attention fixed on Jaylen's water purifier. "How did you create this?" he asks, his tone steady but genuinely curious. Jaylen meets his gaze without hesitation, answering with a calm certainty that fills the space. "My city needed clean water," he says. "I listened, then built a solution that could work for everyone." The simplicity and truth in his words ripple through the room, reaching far beyond the technical details. A hush settles over the expo floor. Judges exchange thoughtful glances, their nods quiet but deeply approving. Jaylen continues, explaining the filtration process with clarity and purpose, each word a quiet assertion of his own value. His voice is never raised, but it carries, clear, measured, and impossible to dismiss. The audience leans in, drawn by the conviction behind every explanation. Thousands of miles away, Dr. Hensley watches the live stream, sweat beading on his forehead. His fingers grip the edge of his desk, knuckling white, as Jaylen's name rises on the leaderboard. The respect shown by the international judges stands in stark contrast to the way Hensley once dismissed him. With every approving nod from the panel, Hensley feels the ground shift beneath him, the foundation of his certainty beginning to crumble. On the expo floor, Jaylen's mother stands at the edge of the crowd, her eyes shining with pride. She sees her son, the boy who was once passed over, now commanding the attention of the world. Around them, students and visitors gather, drawn by the quiet power of Jaylen's presence and the ingenuity of his invention. Jaylen's steady gaze holds, a young man who has transformed doubt into determination and silence, into a voice that cannot be ignored. Jaylen's name flashes across the leaderboard, bold and unmissable. The crowd's reaction is immediate. A swell of cheers, applause, and whispered affirmations. This is more than a competition. It's a moment of justice, a public reckoning for every time he was overlooked. The expo floor buzzes with renewed energy. Students from around the world stop to congratulate Jaylen, their faces alight with admiration and respect. The weight of years of doubt seems to lift, replaced by a collective celebration of talent and perseverance. Back in a dimly lit room, Dr. Hensley watches the screen, his face pale and drawn, The flickering light casts shadows that deepen the lines of worry etched across his forehead. His hands tremble slightly as he leans forward, unable to look away. Each new point Jaylen earns chips away at the fortress of denial he once built. The camera lingers on Hensley's reflection on the screen, a fractured image mirroring his crumbling confidence. Around him, the quiet hum of the expo contrasts sharply with the storm brewing inside one man's mind. Jaylen stands tall, his eyes scanning the crowd with quiet pride. He knows this moment is not just his victory, but a beacon for those who have been told they don't belong. The applause swells again, a wave of sound that carries the promise of change. The scene closes on Jaylen's steady gaze, a young man, transformed by resilience and the undeniable power of truth. Jaylen accepts the grand prize, the medal cold in his palm. He turns to his mother, voice low but clear. "For all the times we weren't seen." Her tears fall silently, a lifetime of slights washed away in a single gesture. The camera lingers on the medal, proof that dignity outshines prejudice. The expo hall buzzes with applause, but Jaylen's focus is quiet, his eyes reflecting the weight of the journey. Around him, students and judges alike nod in respect, the barriers of doubt dissolving in the glow of achievement. His mother's hand finds his, a steady anchor in the sea of celebration. Backstage, a teacher watches from the shadows, her expression a mix of pride and relief. She remembers the whispered doubts and the unseen struggles, now replaced by this moment of undeniable triumph. The janitor, passing by, pauses to smile, a silent witness to the victory long overdue. Jaylen's voice breaks the quiet as he speaks softly to the crowd. "This medal isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who was told they didn't belong. Today, we show that resilience and truth can break through any wall." The room holds, its breath, the power of his words settling like a gentle wave. The scene closes on Jaylen's steady gaze, the medal gleaming, a symbol of honor, healing, and the promise of change. The school principal stands before the cameras, his smile practiced and tight. "We're reviewing our standards," he says, voice steady but lacking warmth. The words hang in the air, a rehearsed response to the storm brewing outside these walls. Behind him, the gym's "Congratulations, Jaylen" banner flutters weakly, its edges curling and fading. Teachers exchange glances in the background, their eyes speaking volumes that their lips do not. One teacher bites her lip, another shifts uneasily, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on them all. The principal's words are a shield, but the cracks in the facade are visible to those who look closely. In the hallway, a janitor pauses, his gaze lingering on the banner before he resumes his work. The soft scrape of his broom a quiet counterpoint to the hollow applause echoing from the gym. The community's response is muted, a collective breath held in cautious hope, but wary of empty promises. The principal's statement is met with polite nods from the board members, but the tension in the room is palpable. A secretary glanced nervously at her phone, the flood of messages demanding accountability unread but felt. The scene closes on the principal's face, a mask of control barely concealing the pressure mounting beneath. The gym's energy has shifted. The celebration feels fragile, a moment suspended between past failures and the uncertain promise of change. Jaylen's victory shines brightly, but the path ahead remains steep and uncertain. The article spreads like wildfire, its headline bold and unforgiving. Decades of bias, the hidden history of Dr. Hensley. Readers across the city pause, their eyes scanning the damning details of buried complaints and erased potential. Social media buzzes with calls for accountability, the school's name trending alongside demands for justice. Dr. Hensley sits in his dimly lit office, the glow of his computer screen casting harsh shadows on his face. His inbox blinks relentlessly, each new message a reminder of the past he tried to keep hidden. He deletes emails with growing desperation, but the tide of outrage is relentless, crashing over his carefully maintained facade. A teacher nearby watches the news unfold, her expression a mix of vindication and sorrow. She remembers the whispered warnings and the students who never got their chance. The janitor pauses in the hallway, his eyes reflecting a quiet satisfaction as the truth finally surfaces. The school community is shaken, the walls reverberating, with the impact of exposure. Parents gather in hushed conversations, their voices tinged with both anger and hope. Jaylen's mother stands among them, her gaze steady, knowing that this moment is a turning point. The camera lingers on Hensley's face, a man unraveling under the weight of his own history as the scene fades to the growing chorus of voices demanding change. Dr. Hensley sits alone in his dimly lit office, the glow of his computer screen casting long shadows across his face. His inbox is empty, the silence louder than any accusation that has been hurled his way. The absence of messages is a stark contrast to the flood of outrage that once filled the digital space. Outside his window, the school grounds buzz with life. Students laugh and cheer as Jaylen returns, the gymnasium decorated with banners celebrating his victory. The sounds of celebration drift faintly into Hensley's isolated world, a reminder of the distance between him and the community he once controlled. Hensley closes his laptop with a soft click, the finality echoing in the quiet room. His trophy shelf, once crowded with accolades, now holds only dust and fading memories. The weight of his downfall settles heavily, a quiet reckoning that no words could hasten. In the hallways, footsteps echo without response. Students pass by, without a glance, their focus on the future rather than the man who once wielded unseen power. A janitor moves through the corridors, quietly buffing the floors, erasing the traces of a legacy that is quickly fading. The school moves forward, its halls filled with new energy and hope. Hensley's silence is a testament to the collapse of privilege, a quiet end to a chapter marked by exclusion and bias. The scene closes on the empty office, the stillness a powerful symbol of change and the promise of a new beginning. Jaylen's medal rests beside family photos, its shine softening the room. His mother traces its edges, her pride a quiet revolution. The gentle light that fills the space speaks of new beginnings and hard-won victories, casting away the shadows of doubt that once lingered in every corner. She sits quietly, reflecting on the long journey that brought them here, the late nights spent encouraging Jaylen, the moments when discouragement threatened to win, and the silent prayers for just one chance. Now, in this peaceful moment, the weight of those struggles finally lifts. The medal is more than a trophy. It is a symbol of battles fought and dignity reclaimed. Jaylen stands by the window, his gaze steady and thoughtful as he looks out at the world beyond. There is a calm confidence in his posture, the quiet assurance of someone who has faced obstacles and refused to be defined by them. The medal on the mantel is not just for him. It is for everyone who was ever told to wait, to shrink, to settle for less. In the background, the water purifier hums softly, a reminder that real change is measured not only by recognition, but by impact. The device stands as proof that genius can thrive when barriers are broken and support is given. The camera lingers on Jaylen's face, illuminated by the soft glow of the afternoon sun, then shifts back to the medal, a new legacy forged in resilience, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. Hensley moves slowly through the school's main corridor, the echo of his footsteps a faint reminder of the authority he once commanded. The walls, lined with faded achievement plaques, seem to close in around him, their silence heavier than any reprimand. The morning light filters through high windows, casting long shadows that follow him with every step. Each stride feels more uncertain, as if the ground beneath him is quietly shifting. Students pass in small groups, their laughter and conversation filling the halls with a new energy. Not one pair of eyes turns his way. Where once he was greeted with nervous respect or forced politeness, now he is simply another figure blending into the background. A teacher stands by her classroom door, arms crossed, her gaze meeting his for a brief moment before she turns away, choosing to focus on the students instead. The message is clear. The era of his influence is over. A janitor works methodically at the end of the hall, pushing a buffer across the floor. He pauses as Hensley approaches, offering a nod that is neither warm nor cold, just acknowledgement of a presence that no longer holds sway. The sound of the buffer resumes, its steady hum erasing the last traces of Hensley's passage. It is as if the building itself is intent on cleansing the memory of exclusion and bias, making space for something new. Inside the staff lounge, teachers talk in low voices about upcoming projects and new opportunities for students. The air is lighter, the mood more hopeful. Posters for the next science fair cover the bulletin board, this time featuring a diverse group of smiling faces. Hensley lingers in the doorway, unseen and uninvited, the realization settling in that the halls no longer remember him as a leader but as a lesson. He stops by a trophy case, his own reflection fractured by the glass. Outside, Jaylen's laughter rings out as he mentors a younger student. The school has moved on, its rhythm now set by those who believe in possibility rather than limitation. Hensley's footsteps fade, leaving behind only the quiet promise of change. Jaylen stands in the bustling gym, the air alive with the energy of a new science fair. This time he is not a competitor but a mentor, moving from table to table with a quiet confidence that draws students and parents alike. He pauses beside a young girl, her project bold and inventive, her eyes wide with a mix of nerves and hope. Jaylen kneels to her level, listening intently as she describes her experiment, his encouragement gentle but sincere. "You did all this yourself?" he asks, and she nods proudly. "That's incredible. Keep pushing. The world needs your ideas." Across the room, a new judge reviews projects with genuine curiosity, asking thoughtful questions and offering real feedback. The judge's presence is different, open, attentive, and eager to see every student's work. Teachers watch, exchanging smiles, their relief palpable. The old tension has been replaced with a sense of possibility, a collective belief that the system can be better. Parents gather along the walls, their conversations filled with excitement rather than anxiety. They point to the posters featuring Jaylen's face among past winners, a symbol of what can happen when talent is recognized and nurtured. A group of students huddle around Jaylen, peppering him with questions about his invention, his journey, and how he found the courage to keep going. He answers each one with humility, reminding them that their voices matter. As the fair continues, the camera pans to the young girl's project. The new judge leans in, offering a thoughtful nod and jotting down notes. The girl beams, her confidence growing with every word of encouragement. Jaylen steps back, watching her stand a little taller, her hope unburdened by the doubts that once haunted these halls. The scene closes on Jaylen's quiet smile. The gym filled with the sound of dreams, taking flight. The world exhales, ready for the next name to rise, a movement ignited not by anger, but by the steady light of possibility and the promise that every story deserves to be heard. Dr. Hensley sits alone at a corner table in a nearly empty cafe, his coffee cooling untouched before him. The world outside moves on, but inside, time seems to slow. He scrolls through headline after headline on his phone, each one celebrating Jaylen's victory, each one a fresh reminder of his own undoing. The glow of the screen reflects in his tired eyes, amplifying the sense of distance between him and the world he once influenced so easily. The barista, a black college student with a calm confidence, greets every customer with a nod or a smile. When she reaches Hensley's table, her expression is polite but impersonal. She sets his coffee down with a gentle clink, not meeting his gaze, then moves on to the next customer with a warmth she withholds from him. Hensley notices, the sting sharper than any public rebuke. Around him, quiet conversations ripple through. The cafe, students discussing assignments, friends sharing laughter, but no one acknowledges him. Each ignored glance, each moment of exclusion is a silent verdict. He shifts in his seat, the isolation pressing in. The cafe once felt like a haven, a place where he could hold court and be recognized. Now it is a stage for his quiet exile. He watches as a group of students at the next table pull up the news on their phones, their voices rising in excitement as they read about Jaylen's achievement. One of them glances his way, recognition flickering in her eyes before she turns back to her friends, choosing not to engage. Hensley's fingers tighten around his cup, the warmth now gone. The world he once controlled has moved on without him, leaving him to reckon with the consequences of his choices in the cold light of day. The scene closes on his solitary figure, surrounded by the hum of life that no longer includes him, the taste of isolation lingering long after the coffee has gone cold. Dr. Hensley walks through his neighborhood, the streets eerily quiet under the fading light of dusk. Neighbors, once familiar faces, now cross to the other side, their eyes deliberately avoiding his. Windows close softly behind drawn curtains, muffling the usual evening chatter. Conversations hush as he approaches, the air thick with the weight of unspoken judgment, heavier than any accusation ever voiced aloud. Once a man of influence and quiet authority, he now moves like a ghost, a social exile marked by silent rejection and invisible walls. He notices a child clutching a parent's hand tighter as they pass him by, their small fingers trembling with a mix of fear and learned caution. A woman peers through a lace curtain, her gaze sharp but fleeting, as if afraid to be seen acknowledging him. The community's collective shift is palpable, a wordless verdict that speaks louder than any public condemnation or headline. The streets that once welcomed him now seem to close in, the familiar paths transformed into barriers. Hensley's steps falter, the weight of isolation pressing down with every footfall. The power he once wielded with a glance and a pen has dissolved into whispers and avoidance. The silence around him is a heavy cloak, suffocating and absolute, wrapping him in a solitude that no words can break. The neighborhood's quiet verdict is a sentence more profound than any court's judgment. As he reaches his doorstep, the door remains firmly closed, the lock a symbol of the barriers now between him and the world he once controlled. The porch. Light flickers, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the cracked concrete. The neighborhood breathes a quiet sigh of relief, the chapter of his influence quietly closed, replaced by a new era of accountability and hope. The evening air carries the distant laughter of children playing, a stark contrast to the heavy stillness that surrounds Hensley. He stands alone, a man diminished not by words, but by the collective will of a community that has chosen to move forward without him. The school board meeting room is filled with a tense quiet, the polished table reflecting the weight of unspoken truths. Dr. Hensley enters, his usual confident stride replaced by a hesitant shuffle. Board members sit stiffly, their faces masks of professionalism that barely conceal the tension beneath. Hensley clears his throat, attempting to speak, but his voice is met with polite nods and averted eyes. His suggestions fall flat, dismissed, without direct confrontation. The room, once his domain, now feels like a stage for his irrelevance. The collapse of his authority is marked by heavy silences and the subtle exchange of glances among the board. A secretary glances nervously at her phone, the flood of emails demanding accountability, still unread but felt. The superintendent offers a rehearsed statement about reviewing policies, but the words ring hollow in the charged atmosphere. Teachers and staff in the room exchange looks of cautious optimism, their hope tempered by years of broken promises. Outside the window, the school's brick walls and creeping ivy seem to absorb the moment, the weight of change settling in. Hensley's presence is diminished, his influence waning as the community's call for justice grows louder. The meeting ends with a soft click of the door, leaving behind a room heavy with the promise of change yet to come. Jaylen returns to his school, the gymnasium transformed into a vibrant celebration of his achievement. Banners hang proudly, their colors bright against the walls that once echoed with doubt. Students and teachers alike gather, their faces alight with smiles and applause, a collective embrace of change and hope. Ms. Malhotra steps forward, her eyes shining with pride as she pulls Jaylen into a warm hug. The years of quiet struggle and unseen battles seem to dissolve in that moment, replaced by a shared joy that speaks louder than words. Nearby, Mrs. Banks wipes away tears, her hands trembling with the weight of long-held pain finally eased. Jaylen stands before the crowd, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This isn't just my win," he says. "It's for everyone who was ever told not yet." The room holds its breath, the power of his words settling like a gentle wave over the gathered faces. The celebration is not just for a single victory, but for the promise of a future where every dream is given a chance. The school feels different now, lighter and more open. Conversations buzz with plans for new initiatives, and the energy of possibility fills the air. Jaylen's mother watches from the side, her smile quiet but full of hope. The scene closes on Jaylen's steady gaze, a young man transformed by resilience and the support of a community ready to embrace change. The school district announces new, transparent judging guidelines and a diverse panel for future fairs. The policy shift is quiet but monumental, a written promise that the old ways are gone. The announcement is met with cautious hope, a collective breath held as the system begins to change. The superintendent stands before a gathered crowd, his voice steady but sincere. "We recognize the need for fairness and inclusion in every aspect of our programs," he says. "These new guidelines will ensure that every student's talent is judged without bias, and every voice is heard." Teachers exchange hopeful glances, their expressions a mix of relief and determination. Ms. Malhotra, standing among them, feels the weight of years of struggle begin to lift. Parents nod quietly, their faces reflecting a cautious optimism that change is finally within reach. Jaylen watches from the sidelines, his heart steady but full. The banners behind the superintendent flutter gently, bearing the words, "Equity and Inclusion, a New Chapter." The gym feels lighter, the air charged with possibility. This moment is not just a policy change. It is a beacon for every student who has ever been overlooked. The camera lingers on the new judging panel, a diverse group of faces united by a shared commitment to justice. The scene closes on Jaylen's calm gaze, a young man who has helped turn the tide, standing quietly at the forefront of a new era. Jaylen moves through the bustling gym, no longer a competitor, but a mentor. His presence is calm, steady, a quiet force drawing students and parents alike. He pauses beside a young girl, her project bold and bright, her eyes wide with hope and nerves. Kneeling, he listens intently as she explains her experiment. "You did all this yourself?" Jaylen asks softly. She nods, pride shining through her hesitation. "That's incredible. Keep pushing. The world needs your ideas," he encourages, his voice gentle but firm. Across the room, a new judge approaches projects with genuine curiosity, asking thoughtful questions and offering real feedback. Teachers exchange relieved smiles, sensing the shift in atmosphere. The old tension has given way to possibility. Parents gather, their conversations filled with excitement rather than worry. They point to posters featuring Jaylen's face among past winners, symbols of what can happen when talent is recognized and nurtured. Students cluster around Jaylen, peppering him with questions about his invention and journey. He answers with humility, reminding them their voices matter. The camera pans to the young girl's project. The judge leans in, nodding thoughtfully, jotting notes. The girl beams, confidence growing with every word of encouragement. Jaylen steps back, watching her stand taller, her hope unburdened by doubt. The gym fills with the sound of dreams taking flight. Jaylen's quiet smile closes the scene, a movement ignited by steady light and the promise that every story deserves to be heard. Nearby, a teacher watches from the sidelines, her eyes reflecting a mix of pride and hope. She exchanges a knowing glance with a janitor, who nods in silent approval. The school feels different now, the air charged with possibility and renewal. Jaylen pauses by a table where a group of students debate ideas, their voices animated and full of promise. He listens, offering a few words of encouragement before Moving on, his presence a steady beacon in the evolving landscape. Parents whisper among themselves, their faces alight with newfound optimism. The banners celebrating past winners flutter gently, symbols of a future rewritten by resilience and determination. As the fair continues, Jaylen's gaze lingers on the young girl's confident smile. The scene fades on his steady expression, a quiet promise that the torch has been passed and the journey toward justice continues. Jaylen's voice carries softly over the scene, each word measured and full of meaning. Change doesn't roar, it whispers, through every door that opens, every story finally told. The school feels transformed, not by grand gestures, but by the steady accumulation of small, powerful victories. The walls are now lined with posters that celebrate diversity and inclusion, each one a quiet testament to the progress made. As Jaylen walks the halls, students greet him with nods and smiles, their conversations filled with hope and new ambition. He pauses to acknowledge a group of younger students, their faces bright with possibility. The energy in the building is different, lighter, more open, charged with the promise of opportunity for everyone. In a nearby classroom, a teacher stands before her students, reading aloud the new judging guidelines. Her voice is steady, and the students listen with a mix of relief and cautious optimism. The words are more than policy. They are a signal that the rules have changed and that every effort will be valued. The camera shifts to the janitor, who quietly sweeps the hallway, his eyes reflecting pride in the changes unfolding around him. Jaylen sits with a small group of students, sharing stories of resilience and encouraging them to pursue their dreams. His words are calm but powerful, a reminder that the most lasting revolutions are often built on patience and persistence. The students listen closely, drawing strength from his journey and the knowledge that their own voices can shape the future. As the day ends, the camera pulls back to reveal the school bathed in warm sunlight. The building stands as a symbol of hope and ongoing transformation, its quiet revolution echoing in every corner. The scene closes on Jaylen's thoughtful expression, a silent promise that the work continues, one victory at a time. Jaylen steps out of the gym, medal in hand, as the first rays of sunlight spill over the school grounds. The air feels different, lighter, filled with possibility. Each step he takes echoes the promise of a new beginning, not just for him, but for every student who dares to dream. The school is alive with quiet energy. Students gather in small groups, their conversations buzzing with plans and hope. Teachers exchange smiles, their eyes reflecting the slow but steady change that has taken root. The banners celebrating past winners flutter gently in the morning breeze, symbols of resilience and progress. Jaylen pauses at the entrance, looking back at the gym where his journey began. The memories of doubt and dismissal linger, but they no longer define him. Instead, they fuel a quiet determination to pave the way for those who will follow. A young girl approaches, her project bold and bright, her eyes shining with unspoken questions. Jaylen kneels to her level, offering encouragement that speaks louder than words. "Keep pushing," he says softly. "Your story matters." The camera pulls back to reveal the school bathed in warm light, a beacon of hope and renewal. The day is not marked by applause or fanfare, but by the steady, unyielding promise of change. Jaylen's journey is a testament to the power of resilience, dignity, and the quiet strength that whispers through every open door. The scene fades on Jaylen's calm, hopeful gaze, a young man stepping into the light, ready to lead the way for the next generation.